Thanks so much, Pascal, for that. I'm so glad that it was brief because it's horrible in there, really hot. And we were saying that's the reason why we became film and TV composers, is not to be like in a band, hanging out in a place like that.
Concrete box.
Possibly having a little glass of wine. Thank you so much for coming here today. And it's a pretty mental kind of thing that's happened. I mean, working with Hans Zimmer was big, working with Olafur Arnalds, you know, when we got the phone call from BT, the phone call from the Bernard Herrmann estate, it was kind of, those were pretty amazing moments. But this was another meeting in a pub, I recall, and it was kind of, it's I don't know, it's a pretty heavy day for us. So let's begin. We stand on the shoulders of giants. We're not born with an innate ability to play the clarinet or write symphonies or crank out a banging pop tune. We rely on the investigations, the adventures, the struggles of others who have, I believe, made our art and craft form one of the most free forms of expression on the planet here today. Our friend Hans Zimmer often says, you know, if you only study the bees, you're probably going to be okay. For me, for us, being a true musician is not just improvising, composing, performing, or indeed collecting royalties. It's about sharing and collaborating. And I think that we've kind of been doing that over the last 10 years. And it's great because I think a few of you who will feature here are here. We've been meeting with the most talented of individuals, the most generous of individuals, sharing what you have learned over the last 10 years, which has been a real honor. Because we're part of a renaissance that's so exciting to be, you know, involved in, and that is the renaissance of orchestral. Orchestral sampling enables people who haven't been to a conservatoire, who haven't studied theory, who can't read music like I can't, to create orchestral music. And it's because of that that orchestral music, I think, is probably the most listened to genre on the planet today, whether it be games, whether it be neoclassical concert, orchestral music is being made by more people than ever before. To cap it off, we've had this amazing thing happen with us. Our labs project is a means of delivering free sample content to literally hundreds of thousands of people around the world. And we get a lot of emails back, and it's people from all kind of different environments and backgrounds. It's a very, very proud moment when we cross the 1 million download mark. And to cap it off, our queen, Beyoncé, in her album that accompanied The Lion King, The Gift, has released a track that features pretty much all of the instrumentation is made from Labs material. The felt piano, or the soft piano as it's called, we feel is kind of the use of that is very much inspired or similar to the way Olafur Arnalds used his felt pianos on his album Remember, and certainly the opening track. And I had breakfast with him recently in Berlin, and he said, well, the inspiration for that album and the way that he used the pianos was the mandolin swarm, which is interesting because we feel also you too may have been influenced by the mandolin swarm, because the opening track off their latest album is pretty much the mandolin swarm and Bono in duet. So we're massively proud to be part of this kind of connective tissue, part of the zeitgeist, part of the continuum. We're so proud that we're part of people sharing and collaborating. So I'll stop waffling. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a really big announcement today, and let's roll a film. It's honestly genuinely emotional to see those blocks and Spitfire audio together. It's such a mad odyssey that we're on, Paul, isn't it?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
The thing about the BBC, it's kind of a cradle to grave passage. We've grown up in the 70s watching BBC's children and entertainment programming.
We're a Tom Baker doctor, aren't we?
Tom Baker doctors, yeah. Fans over there. The BBC is so many things to us. It's a trusted news source when something big happens in the world, especially with the BBC World Service. That's where you go to get the information. And the thing about the BBC, the amazing thing about the BBC that not many people know is that it started as a technology company.
Oh, absolutely. And this was a text I sent to Paul yesterday. We've actually cropped the expletive off the top to see the words BBC and then the beginning of the Symphony Orchestra in the plug-in letterbox. For me, it's just, I didn't go to a conservatoire. And that's what we're seeing with what we're involved with, is people are making orchestral music without having to go through that somewhat privileged kind of journey that is valid and brilliant. But to see it in a plug-in form is a validation of what we do, and the fact that that is how you make orchestral music these days, and that is the reason why it is this most listened to form of music, and why the concert halls are full of people watching games, music concerts, and you and I can't get into Air Studios these days.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. It's really opened the technology of orchestral sampling has opened the ability to compose orchestral music and to work with orchestras up to the widest field of people that it's ever been.
So for me, working on that trailer music that you heard, seeing those three letters, just the comfort I found from it was quite extraordinary. Paul, should we talk about the library itself?
Yes.
So it's just another orchestral sample library.
Well, no. It's the BBC, isn't it? Yeah. So it's been a huge privilege and a huge honour to be able to work with the BBC Symphony Orchestra. Orchestra founded in 1930. It's referred to as the Broadcast Orchestra. And the reason for this is that it is probably one of the most listened to orchestras worldwide. It's one of the most technically accomplished orchestras worldwide as well. It's a sound that's very familiar to us. They always open and close the proms every year. And for this, we have everything in one package. So it's an ideal way to collaborate with other musicians. It's incredibly simple. You have one plugin on your machine, you're writing some music, you want to collaborate with somebody, and they can open the same plugin on their machine and open your session, and it just works.
And it's not just about collaborating professionally as well, it's a means of learning, collaborative and creative learning.
Absolutely, absolutely.
No, yeah. It's fantastic. But Paul, you've kind of curated this project. How did it come about?
So I was writing some music for BBC Studios, and we've both written for a lot of BBC projects, and we've always had an amazing relationship with BBC Studios. And as this project was coming to an end, they contacted us and said, we like what you're doing with Spitfire, and is there something that we could maybe collaborate on? And so we started a series of meetings where we brainstormed, different ideas, and we came up with a really exciting project, of which this is the beginning.
Maida Vale Studios. It's kind of the first time we've used a sound stage to record an orchestra.
Yeah, so Maida Vale is an amazing building. It started life as a roller skating rink in the early 20th century, and then round about the time that the orchestra was founded in 1930, it was bought by the BBC. It's one of the oldest BBC buildings. And they gutted the building and built 7 recording studios in there, of which the biggest one, Maida Vale 1, has been the home for the Symphony Orchestra since 1934. It's an amazing room. It has an amazing sound, and it is like a scoring stage sound. It's a kind of... the thing about recording an orchestra, recording an instrument, the room is part of the sound. Mm-hmm. And when we first heard a recording in that room, we were just astounded by how incredible the orchestra, the combination of the orchestra and the room sounded. And one of the things about the symphony orchestra there is a different sound to an orchestra when you have a group of players who play with each other week in, week out. They know each other's styles intimately, and they're able to blend the sound together into something which is really quite fantastic.
Barn is the wrong word, but it is like a big
It's
room.
a large room. It's surprising because it's not that reverberant. It's been really well designed, but it is a large room. You can fit a huge symphony orchestra in there, a chorus, and also still have room for 200 people to sit in there and listen. And thousands of broadcasts have been made over the years from this room.
And what makes this project particularly poignant is maybe slightly kind of sad, really, in many respects.
Well, it's exciting news for the Symphony Orchestra because they have a new home. So from around 2022, they will be in a new home in East London. So Maida Vale Studios is being decommissioned as a recording studio. For us, as kind of, lovers of sound and rooms, it's a little bit sad, but it just made us more determined to get in there and to really capture the sound of this incredible orchestra playing in this beautiful acoustic so that this sound is available for future musicians to use in their compositions.
And if you know Paul, that means we've got to get everything. So go on then, mate.
So we recorded a symphonic string section, which is 60 players. We also recorded the leader of each section separately.
Recorded separately so that, it's...
So you can add that on top. It's not from the same recordings. We also recorded a symphonic woodwind section, so soloists and also ensemble sections. We recorded our symphonic brass section, so again, soloists and ensembles for each section, for each instrument. We also recorded a massive percussion section. All of this recorded in situ, so it's exactly in the right place so that getting the sound of the orchestra up is incredibly straightforward. And within the percussion section, a beautiful harp library as well.
And I found a bit of footage, Paul. That's one of 3 racks of
Yes.
mic pre's. Why?
So we came up with a slightly more complicated setup than we usually use to record. We wanted to get 80 channels of absolutely pristine, ultra high quality mic channels into our control room that we built on location to make it exactly what we needed. And we went for these incredible Millennia mic pre's. So we had 80 channels of mics going into the control room. Now, the reason for this is partly because we wanted to have lots of microphone options for the end user, and it's got all the usual Spitfire suspects, your close mics, your tree, Decca tree, your outriggers, and all that kind of thing. A couple of extras in there, so some other interesting choices, including...
That's why I'm here.
This fabulous beast, which is the BBC Marconi mic, and this is an original. This mic was used in the very early days of recording the symphony orchestra. It would be suspended above the conductor's head, and it's got an incredible sound. It's
Make
mono.
me not want to be a conductor, to be honest. I
Yeah,
want to kill a man.
the sword of Damocles. But actually, it's got an incredible sound, and so that is part of the collection as well. We also future-proofed it, so we have Atmos compatibility. There's a huge amount of surround information, so you really have any possible configuration you want to make is possible within the library. But that's only half the story.
John Powell comes into the narrative here.
Yeah. So I was sitting in one of John Powell's recording sessions in the control room at Lyndhurst. And I was telling him, this is a few years back, I was telling him about a recent session that we'd done, brass recording session. And he just suddenly said, did you record all the mics? And I said, yeah, we had everything the usual. And he said, did you put mics out for the players who weren't there? And I said, no. And he went, like that. And that little thing, I was like, that's just stuck in my head. This little seed had started to sprout. And this opportunity was the first opportunity we had to work this into the recording system. So we thought about, okay, how do we do this? We want all of the mics open all of the time. And the idea is to get the spill from one instrument into all the other mics. So for example, if you're using a flute solo, you can add in the spill from the strings mics or the brass mics, percussion mics, all of them. But also if you've got just one section, so you're using the violin ones, you have the opportunity to add in the rest of the strings spill as well. So all the other mics that would be recording the rest of the strings. And we found this really added something to the sound.
Yeah, I mean, when you suggested that, I was like, oh, really? Must we? And then using it this week, it's been incredible because it's like 3D modeling. It adds extra kind of shading. And you had a good analogy with lighting.
Yes, so it's the audio equivalent for me of if you imagine floodlighting the studio as opposed to having a spotlight on one player. So the spotlight on one player is great. When you floodlight it, suddenly it's almost like it kind of envelops you, the sound envelops you.
And I think the important thing is that you can then control those spots and all of that kind of
Exactly,
stuff. That's
exactly, absolutely.
So our amazing colleague, long-time collaborator who's been with us from the beginning, Andy Blaney, he's been having a play with BBC SO for the last week, hasn't he?
Yes, so he's had a play with the Beta, and he has written a wonderful piece of music. He's an amazing composer. The idea was just to show you what it sounds like out of the box. So he used one of Jake Jackson's mixes, really straightforward, simple, but he added in some of these spill mics as well. And this is the sound. There's no reverbs or anything like that. There's no outboard. It's really just the sound of the BBC Symphony Orchestra plug-in out of the box. So let's have a listen.
So Andy's only been working with this library for a week. We're all just
Yeah.
working on betas at the moment. And I Instagrammed a screen capture of my trailer music, which has been quite popular. But someone said, cutting it a bit fine, mate, aren't you? And really, you know, what this boils down to is actually it's a company built from a pair of hacks. You know, we're film and TV composers. And the key tenet to Spitfire Audio is ease of use and speed of use.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just about when you're on a deadline and you have to produce music very quickly. It's also, for me, about the idea of getting the music out of your head and into some kind of tangible form. And if you have to stop in the process to do a kind of science experiment to try and make it sound good, then it's just you lose everything. The inspiration goes and you stall. So for me, the ability to get your ideas realized as quickly as possible is absolutely essential.
And the cohesion of this library is quite extraordinary.
Absolutely. We're working incredibly hard on getting it absolutely beautifully laid out, beautifully sounding, so that everything sounds absolutely as it would if you had the orchestra sat there in front of you.
We're going to have a look.
Go on then. So, we're just going to have a very quick look at a handful of patches that
Just to interrupt, this GUI is a work in progress at the moment from a kind of branding point of view.
So one of Christian's favourite things is the soltastos, and here are the cellos.
Love it. I love the frigidity of the reach there up in the gods for the cellos.
And just before I move on, I'll just very quickly flick through so you can see your articulation browser, lots of different articulations or kind of playing styles in there. And also among the mix pages, you've got tons and tons of options in there as well. So it's very, very easy to set up and dial in exactly the sound that you want. We always love a bit of tenor trombone staccatissimo.
And what mics are those, Paul, that you're listening to?
So at the moment we're listening to the tree, the outriggers. So it's basically one thing. So the tree and the outriggers operate as one kind of mic set. And I've also put a bit of the close in. The close give you a little bit of bite in the sound. As you can hear, it's very dynamic.
But you can really hear the warmth of the room, the size of it without it being massively reverberant.
Exactly. And actually, down the bottom end of the longs kind of sforzando, you get that impression. It's not too reverberant,
no,
but it just gives that fullness to the sound that's so essential. One of my favourites, being an ex-clarinetist, well, I guess still a clarinetist. So love that. Also things like the multi-tongue. There's lots of different settings, double, triple, quadruple, and all kinds of extra articulations in there that make it really easy to write. The contrabass tuba, I know, is one of your favourites, isn't it, Christian?
Yeah, love it. That, for me, really demonstrates the room. You know, that it is like imagining the body of a guitar. It's so much part of the sound.
It's like recording the guitar without plugging it into the amp. It's half the sound, so absolutely essential. The timps that you just heard in Andy's demo, again, great sound and lots of different options. As ever, hot rods, rolls, soft sticks, hard sticks, all of that kind of stuff. The harp, I love, it's so...
Amazing. And there's some enhancements to the kind of plug-in experience, isn't there, as well?
Absolutely. So if you look here, you can see a little pencil symbol. Now that takes you into a page where you can design your own presets. So it's incredibly simple to bin a few of the articulations or add them back in. You can change the order of things. It's very, very straightforward. And this is useful because you can set the thing up the way that you like to work, but also you can set it up for specific use if you're working on a compromised system, say a very old laptop or something like that. It's really easy to set up a system where you are loading low resources but still able to write with this amazing sound.
For me, having spent a couple of days working intensively on the trailer, what I found, having a single plugin with everything in that I needed really exposed to me the number of hacks within my workflow I'd been doing up to that point. You know, getting files from different platforms, from different file systems, that kind of stuff. And to have it all browsable in this one world, I think is absolutely fantastic.
It's great. It's really easy to find the sounds that you want very, very quick. Yeah.
I mean, again, it gives us that kind of unique opportunity to have a universal starting point that helps us with the sharing and collaborating.
Absolutely.
Brilliant stuff. I think the one thing that we haven't mentioned really here is Spitfire and the journey we've been on for the last, it's nearly 12 years, Paul. And you know, that's something I think that's worth mentioning here is it's not only the experience we've gained, but the talent that has come on board with Spitfire is just phenomenal.
It's amazing. We've got an incredible team, people who've been involved in this project, our production team who made the recordings, our post-production team who have worked for months and months, refining and really perfecting the sounds in here. Our software team who have built this incredible piece of software, and also our design team who've made it look so absolutely beautiful. And really company-wide, we're blessed with incredible talent across the company.
And for me, that's what it feels like. It feels like Spitfire 2019.
Yeah.
And so it should. You know, Chamber Strings, which I love so dearly, is nearly 7 years old, and we have come a long way.
We've learned a lot.
We've learned a heck of a lot. So, Paul, how deep have you gone?
So, we have recorded 55 different instruments, 418 articulations across the whole orchestra, 33 different legato patches across the orchestra. There are 20 mic signals and over 1 million samples. It's about 600 gigabytes. Therein lies a story. This is one of the flashes of genius in our software development team. They developed our own fully lossless audio compression system, which we're calling S-FLAC, Spitfire FLAC. And that has brought the size of this library down from approximately 1.4 terabytes to 600 gigabytes. Yeah, pretty good. Fully lossless, so absolutely no loss of quality, but it takes a lot less toll on your system and saves drive space as well.
So an entire symphony orchestra in one plugin, absolutely pro-end, future-proofed, all of the things we mentioned. Yeah. But we're really proud of this price, aren't we?
Yep. So we are bringing it out with the MSRP of $899 in GB pounds and $999 in euros and dollars. It is available in October, and we are launching a pre-order now. You're able to buy it at the following prices: £679 and £749 euros and dollars.
So obviously it's a very chunky library, and for any of you who have, and you online, who have bought like a big bundle from us, you may have taken advantage of our bespoke hard drive service. We've upped our game there, Paul, haven't we?
We have. So we've upgraded. You can now order this library, or you can pre-order it on SSD. We supply the SSDs at cost. In fact, I think we actually make a tiny loss on the cost, so we're subsidizing it a little bit. But basically, it's at cost. It comes on an SSD, and if you pre-order, you will get the SSD in time for release day. Now, what that means is, on release day, when the product goes live in our library manager, you'll literally just be able to plug your SSD in, authorize your software, and you'll be up and running in minutes. So it will save a lot of download time.
Up till now, it's been really difficult within our world to share and collaborate. In fact, we've worked many years just a corridor away and have struggled. And that, with this kind of universal starting point, changes today. And something that we're really looking forward to doing is sharing with you really long-form tutorials about how we approach this. And we hope to share what you find from the BBC Symphony Orchestra experience, what you learn, the innovations you make, the inspiration you want to pass on, whether that be song files or a humble MIDI file. I know you and I, Paul, are kind of quite interested in possibly learning a bit more about some classics. Like I'd love to program Holst and see how he approached that, again, to kind of lend into that idea of collaborative and creative learning.
Absolutely. It's the perfect tool for really diving into. For me, it's Ravel and Debussy, for looking at those kind of amazing orchestrations and unpicking them and seeing how they work. And this is the perfect opportunity to do that.
Jake Jackson, our chief engineer, and I have been seriously nerding up in my shed in Edinburgh. And what we've been doing is been talking about creating logic templates specific to this library so that you can literally load up the library as a whole. And in fact, what we've also been doing is talking with the guys at Apple, the logic guys at Apple, about how we optimize those templates for their machines. So this is just one of the many ways we hope people are going to share and collaborate in the future. And as we say, this is just the beginning. This has been just such an absolute honour to share with you. I mean, this has been such a journey, Paul. And, you know, Hans Zimmer calling up and saying, let's do some percussion, the Bernard Herrmann estate, kind of absolutely nuts. But this is, you know...
This is a real moment. And we would like to thank BBC Studios, who came up with the idea originally for us to collaborate together and with whom we've been working. The BBC Symphony Orchestra, they're incredible players, and the amazing team at Maida Vale Studios, the whole Spitfire team, who have all worked incredibly hard and with such talent to bring this project to life, and also our families for their ongoing support during this kind of slightly crazy journey that we've been on.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for coming here today, and for those of you who are online watching. We're about to go offline, but if you want to find out more information, go to spitfireaudio.com, where there's lots of information, but there's going to be loads more added over the next few weeks. Look forward to seeing you soon. Good night.
Well done.